Welcome back to World History Explored. I'm your host, Zane. In the lush northern corner of South America lies a border that has divided nations for more than a century, not with trenches and tanks, but with maps, treaties, and memory. The name of this land is Essequibo, a massive territory of rainforest, savanna, and rivers, almost the size of Greece, making up 2/3 of modern Guyana. To most of the world, Essequibo belongs to Guyana, a peaceful nation of 800,000 people. But to Venezuela, it is ancestral land stolen by empire, a colonial injustice that never healed. Today, this dispute is no longer just about history. It's about oil, national identity, and international law. So, who really owns the Essequibo? Is Venezuela reclaiming what was unfairly taken? Or is it challenging international order to chase lost glory? Let's travel back through time, to the empires, explorers, and agreements that built this conflict brick by brick, and uncover why this piece of jungle has become one of South America's most explosive frontiers. Before borders, the first peoples. Long before flags and frontiers, the lands of Essequibo were home to Arawak and Carib peoples. They hunted, fished, and traded across a vast network stretching from the Orinoco River to the Caribbean islands. The Arawaks built coastal villages, skilled in pottery and farming cassava. The Caribs, fierce seafarers, dominated the interior and coastal routes. Together, they wove a civilization rooted in rivers, the lifelines of the Guyana Shield. Then came the Europeans. In 1498, Christopher Columbus sailed along the coast of Trinidad and the Guianas on his third voyage, claiming the lands for Spain. But these jungles were dense and remote. Spain focused its might on the silver of Mexico and the gold of Peru, leaving this corner of empire largely untouched. By the early 1600s, Dutch traders, always pragmatic, saw opportunity where Spain saw wilderness. They established colonies along the Essequibo, Demerara, and Berbice rivers, building plantations and trading with local tribes. The Dutch West India Company brought enslaved Africans to work the land, building a prosperous, though brutal, colonial economy. Spain protested that the area was rightfully theirs, but their presence was little more than paper and parchment. Britain's arrival and the seeds of dispute. As Europe's wars reshaped the world, the colonies changed hands. In 1814, under the Treaty of London, Britain formally acquired the Dutch settlements and merged them into British Guiana in 1831. To the west, the newly independent Republic of Venezuela, born from Simón Bolívar's revolution, inherited Spain's old claims. Venezuelan leaders insisted their eastern frontier reach the Essequibo River, just as Spain's had. But the British saw opportunity beyond that line, in forests, rivers, and gold. In the 1840s, London sent Robert Schomburgk, a German-born explorer and cartographer, to map the border. His survey pushed Britain's boundary deep westward, well inside Venezuelan territory. Venezuela protested loudly, but Britain ignored them, marking the frontier with posts and flags, the infamous Schomburgk Line. When gold was discovered in the Cuyuni Basin in the 1850s, British settlers flooded westward, tightening their hold. The Venezuelans, impoverished and politically unstable, could do little but file diplomatic notes. By the 1880s, tensions reached breaking point. Britain claimed nearly 60,000 additional square miles, and Venezuela feared losing everything east of the Orinoco. In desperation, it appealed to the United States, citing the Monroe Doctrine, the American policy opposing European interference in the Western Hemisphere. President Grover Cleveland agreed to intervene, warning Britain that its actions violated hemispheric sovereignty. The standoff brought the two powers close to conflict, until diplomacy prevailed. The 1899 Paris Arbitration, settled or stolen. In 1897, Britain and Venezuela agreed to submit the case to international arbitration in Paris, a process hailed as a triumph of diplomacy. The tribunal had 5 members, 2 British, 2 Americans representing Venezuela's interests, and a neutral Russian, Friedrich Martens, as president. No Venezuelan judge was allowed to participate directly. That omission would haunt the outcome forever. After months of secret meetings, the tribunal announced its verdict in October 1899. The result: Britain would keep about 90% of the disputed land. Venezuela gained only a small section near the mouth of the Orinoco River. The British were satisfied. Venezuela, though resentful, accepted the result, lacking power to resist. Boundary markers were erected and the new frontier became international law. But half a century later, the ghost of that tribunal returned. In 1949, a confidential memo surfaced, written years earlier by Severo Mallet Provost, one of Venezuela's American legal advisors. In it, he alleged that the Russian judge had secretly struck a political bargain with Britain, pressuring the Americans to accept a compromise. The tribunal's decision, he claimed, was not based on justice but diplomacy, a political deal masquerading as law. There had been no public reasoning, no recorded votes, no transparency. To Venezuela, this was damning evidence that the award was illegitimate, an imperial conspiracy cloaked in legality. But Britain, and later independent Guyana, rejected the claim outright. They argued that even if irregularities existed, the verdict stood. It was signed, implemented, and accepted for decades. And international law demands finality. The 20th century, forgotten, then revived. For much of the early 20th century, the border issue fell silent. Venezuela was busy with political upheavals. British Guiana remained a quiet colony. Trade and migration continued across the Orinoco frontier, and the jungle swallowed the old boundary posts. But everything changed after World War II, as the winds of decolonization swept across the globe. Britain prepared to grant independence to its Caribbean colonies. Venezuela saw its last chance to reopen the case before the new nation of Guyana inherited the old border. And so, in February 1966, Britain, Venezuela, and the soon-to-be independent Guyana signed the Geneva Agreement. The treaty recognized that Venezuela considered the 1899 award null and void, and established a mixed commission to seek a practical, peaceful, and satisfactory solution. It did not invalidate the old boundary, but it kept the controversy alive. To Venezuela, the Geneva Agreement proved the border was still unsettled. To Guyana, it was merely a diplomatic formality, a way to ease independence without confrontation. When the commission expired in 1970 without progress, the issue was referred to the UN Secretary General, who would choose the next method of resolution. For the next 4 decades, quiet mediation replaced confrontation. But beneath the surface, both sides waited, until oil brought the dispute roaring back. The oil discovery that changed everything. In 2015, the American oil company ExxonMobil announced the discovery of vast offshore oil reserves in Guyana's territorial waters, near the Essequibo region. The scale was staggering. Over 11 billion barrels, enough to make Guyana one of the world's richest nations per capita. Overnight, this small, often overlooked country became the focus of global energy giants. Guyana's economy soared. Oil revenues promised a new era of prosperity. But in Caracas, the reaction was fury. Venezuela, already suffering from economic collapse, sanctions, and political turmoil, accused Guyana of stealing wealth from disputed territory. President Nicolas Maduro declared the Essequibo a zone reclaimed by the Bolivarian Republic. Venezuelan maps began showing the area shaded in national colors, and Navy ships intercepted research vessels exploring for oil. In response, Guyana took the case to the International Court of Justice, ICJ, in 2018, asking it to reaffirm the 1899 award's validity once and for all. Venezuela refused to participate, claiming the ICJ lacked jurisdiction under the Geneva Agreement. But in 2020, the court ruled it did have authority to hear the case. Today, the world awaits the ICJ's final verdict, a decision that could reshape South American geopolitics. Venezuela's argument: injustice and identity. Venezuela's claim is rooted in both law and emotion. It argues that the 1899 arbitration was fraudulent, based on a secret deal. It inherited Spain's colonial borders, which extended to the Essequibo River. Britain's westward expansion in the 1800s was imperial theft. The 1966 Geneva Agreement proves the dispute is still alive. For many Venezuelans, Essequibo is a matter of national honor, a symbol of sovereignty lost to foreign manipulation. They see themselves as victims of 19th century imperial bullying, and the revival of the claim as an act of historical justice. In a nation struggling with economic collapse, Essequibo also offers hope, a potential lifeline of resources and pride. In Caracas's narrative, reclaiming it is not aggression, it's redemption. Guyana's argument: law, legitimacy, and self-determination. Guyana's position, however, is firm and widely supported by international law. It argues that the 1899 arbitration was a binding legal process accepted by all parties. For over a century, Britain and Guyana have governed the territory without dispute. International law upholds uti possidetis juris, the inheritance of colonial borders. The people of Essequibo are Guyanese citizens who wish to remain so. Guyana also notes Venezuela's silence between 1899 and 1962, 6 decades of acquiescence that reinforce the border's legitimacy. And perhaps most importantly, Guyana stresses the human factor. The people of Essequibo, who live, work, and vote as Guyanese, have no desire to change nationality. For Georgetown, Venezuela's claim is not about justice. It's about resources and power. The broader picture: law, politics, and oil. The Essequibo dispute is now more than a local quarrel. It's a test case for international law. If the ICJ upholds the 1899 award, Guyana's sovereignty will be secured, and the world will affirm the sanctity of arbitration. If it rules otherwise, it could open the door for nations everywhere to challenge old borders, a dangerous precedent in an already volatile world. The case also carries geopolitical implications. The United States has backed Guyana, both politically and through ExxonMobil's investments. China, a key partner of both nations, walks a delicate line, while CARICOM and Brazil urge peace and dialogue. No one wants a conflict in the Caribbean, but history shows how quickly border tensions can escalate when oil and nationalism mix. The human story. Beyond the headlines, the real story lies with the 125,000 people of Essequibo. They live in small towns and indigenous villages, farming cassava, mining gold, or fishing along the rivers. Most identify strongly as Guyanese, but many also share ethnic and family ties with Venezuela. For them, the dispute is a distant political battle, yet one that could one day decide their fate. They are the ones who will live with the outcome, whatever it may be. Conclusion: the past that shapes the present. So, who truly owns the Essequibo? In the eyes of international law, Guyana. In the hearts of many Venezuelans, Venezuela. The truth lies somewhere between justice and practicality, between historical wounds and the modern world's need for order. Borders, after all, are not just lines on a map. They are stories, stories of conquest, compromise, and continuity. The Essequibo dispute reminds us that history's shadows are long, but peace depends on looking forward, not back. This is Adam Zane. So what do you think? Should historical injustices be reopened, or must the world honor established borders for the sake of stability? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of South America's most complex disputes, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to World History Explored for more stories where geography meets destiny. Until next time, I'm Adam Zane. And remember, every border has a story. The question is, who gets to tell it?